we start, Mataji?
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you all so much for joining us today. So today we are continuing our series on Srimad Bhagavatam chapter-wise summary. And today we have Her Grace Indulekha Karuna Mataji, who will be covering Canto 3, Chapter 3 for us. So thank you all so much for joining us. Mataji, you can now take over the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji, for giving an opportunity to study and to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Datati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langhayati girim yat kripatamaham vande Sri Gurum Dinatharinam Paramanandamadhamam Sri Chaitanyam Ishwaram. Hari Om Sat. Hare Krishna, thank you all for joining us today. And today we will be talking about the third chapter of the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So before we get started with the third chapter, we'll look at a quick summary of the second chapter. So this is the portion where there is a conversation between Uddhava and Vidura. Okay, so this is their discussion when they meet after the disappearance of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So when Vidura met Uddhava, of course, they had such a loving exchange, and Vidura starts asking Uddhava some questions. And he asks about Lord Krishna. And at this, Uddhava starts expressing his feelings of separation because he started getting into his own ecstasy and he remembered his beloved Lord Krishna. He is one who had served the Supreme Lord all throughout his life. And now that Krishna had left the planet, he was very, very dejected. He felt like there would be extreme misfortune. But instead of dwelling on Lord Krishna's disappearance and expressing that, Uddhava started relating the various sweet pastimes of the Supreme Lord. He started with the appearance of Lord Krishna, how he performed so many beautiful activities in the land of Vrindavan, how he lifted the Govardhan hill. And especially, Uddhava focused on two aspects of the Lord. He focused on the Lord's extremely beautiful, extremely attractive form that attracts each and every one of us to the Supreme Lord. And he also spoke about Krishna's extreme mercy and his bewildering activities. So, these two features of the Lord, the attractive form of the Lord and his very merciful nature, are the two if we are that attracts each one of us to Lord Krishna. So if we are not attracted by the beautiful form of the Lord, then we get attracted to his compassionate nature. So after this, he discusses various pastimes in Vraja and Vrajabhumi, and now Uddhava, he wants to relate the pastimes of the Lord in Mathura and Dwaraka. Now, as we all know, these pastimes of the Lord are explained and elaborated in very great detail in the 10th canto. So this is just a very, very brief overview of, we'll just be running through the various pastimes in Mathura and Dwaraka. So verses 1 to 9, it talks about Krishna's education and his marriage after he comes to Mathura from Vrindavan. From text 10 to 15, it will talk about, we discuss the killing of various demons and the Kurukshetra battle. Then from 16 to 23, we will look at how Krishna was in Dwaraka. And 24 to 28 discusses the various events that led to the annihilation of the Yadus. So we will start with how Krishna, once he entered Mathura, what was the very first thing that the Lord did, right? The very first thing that he did was he killed Kamsa. So Krishna and Balram, they entered Mathura, and in order to prove that they were worthy children of their parents at a very young age of 16, Lord Krishna and Balaram, they decided that it is time to kill their maternal uncle Kamsa. This Kamsa had troubled Vasudev and Devaki so much, their parents. And so that's why Vasudev and Devaki decided that they had to shelter, they had to protect their children from the tyrant Kamsa. And so they hid them in the home of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan. Now, Krishna and Balram, once they entered into the arena where wrestlers were fighting with them, their parents were so worried. Okay, now once Chanura and Mushtika are killed, then Krishna and Balram are going to be exposed to Kamsa straight. And Kamsa, he is an evil giant. So they were so worried that this enemy is going to easily defeat and kill their children. So what did Krishna do? The two brothers, they attacked Kamsa straight. He was sitting on the throne, and they still attacked him. And they brought him down and they finished him off. And once they finished him off, they dragged him around. Why? Because they wanted to convince their parents that we actually killed Kamsa. There is no reason for you to fear. Because the moment Krishna and Balaram, they jumped onto the throne of Kamsa, their parents almost fainted. They were really shocked to see what's going to happen next. They couldn't imagine what's going to happen next, and they thought that they're going to see the worst. But Krishna and Balram, they dragged the dead body around and showed them that Kamsa is dead. You don't have to fear anymore. Now, after this, Devaki and Vasudev, they send their kids to Sandipni Muni's ashram for further education. So the Lord learned all the Vedas. There are 6 angas. all from Sandipani Muni. So he just had to hear it once, and he was able to reproduce all that he learned very, very quickly. Okay. And in order to reward his teacher, his guru, what did the Lord do? The Lord brought back the greatest gift that the teacher could ever ask for, and that was his dead son, who was already in Yamalok. So we can understand that no one but the Supreme Lord can be well versed in all the branches of Vedic knowledge just by hearing it once from a teacher. Hmm. Of course, we know that Lord Krishna, he is already the knower of all the Vedas, right? But still, the Lord wants to teach us by example. And he wants to teach us that you have to learn the Vedas from an authorized teacher. And in order to do this, he also went to the ashram of Sandipani Muni. Now, after we learn from the teacher, what should we do? We must make sure that we reward the teacher for the service that they have done to us. And so the Supreme Lord Krishna, he and Balaram, they asked their teacher, what is the reward that we can offer you? And so the Sandipani Muni, he knew the power of the Lord. He knew the prowess of the Lord. And so he decided to ask for what is impossible for anyone else. The teacher asked for his dead son, his son who had died who all a while back. So he was already in Yamalok. And the Lord said, okay, let us go and get this done. So Lord Krishna and Balaram, they brought back this boy from the region of Yamaraj. Now, this has never been heard of before, where somebody can actually bring back the body and soul of someone who has already gone to Yamlok. But Krishna was able to do that. And he was able to fulfill the promise he gave his teacher and reward the teacher by giving back his son. Um, so as devotees, we don't have to be worried or disappointed in any in any reversals in our life, because we are constantly engaging in the Lord's service, and the Lord will make sure that our progress will also be favorably marked by him. So we don't have to be disappointed about anything in life. Lord will take care of us very nicely. After this, the Lord kidnapped Rukmini Devi, and we all know about this pastime. There are two complete chapters on this in the 10th canto, but over here, Uddhava mentions it very briefly that Lord Krishna, he kidnapped Rukmini away from the other hopeful princes and kings, just as Garuda carried away the nectar. Now, this princess Rukmini, she is the daughter of King Bhishmaka. And she is actually Sakshat Lakshmi Devi. She is the goddess of fortune herself. And obviously, the goddess of fortune is the property of the Supreme Lord. So Rukmini Devi is actually meant only for Lord Krishna. But Rukmini Devi had a brother whose name was Rukmi. And this Rukmi arranged her wedding with Shishupal. Although the king, her father, wanted her to be married to Krishna. So what did Rukmini do? Rukmini herself sent an invitation to the Lord, and she asked Krishna, please take me away from this Shishupal. So when Shishupal and all come with their party to get married to me, you please take me away. And Krishna did exactly that. All the princes and kings were lined up there to see the beautiful princess get married to Shishupal. But Krishna came on his chariot and he just swept her away from the scene over the heads of all these princes, just like how Garuda just grabbed the nectar away. After this, there is the pastime of how Lord married the other princesses. There's a whole chapter on how the Lord married 5 princesses. And over here, Uddhava talks specifically about how the Lord won over Princess Nagnajiti by subduing 7 bulls. So how the Lord did this was, the Lord expanded himself in 7 so that he could tie each one of those 7 bulls. That these were strong bulls that the king of Kosala possessed, and nobody else was able to achieve this, where they could actually tie up and subdue the bulls. But Krishna, he managed it without hurting himself in any way. And by expanding himself, he also reassured Nagnajiti, he reassured his future queen that he is able to simultaneously take care of all of his beautiful queens. After this, he relates the pastime of how Lord Krishna, being very pleased with Satyabhama, he brought the Parijata tree from heaven after he battled Indra. Okay, so it talks about how the Lord, he went to the heavenly planets in order to present the earrings of Aditi. So just in the next verse, you will see why the Lord had to do that. So he presents the earrings to Mother Aditi. She is a mother of all the demigods. And he went along with his wife Satyabhama there. So when Satyabhama saw this beautiful flowering tree called the Parijata that grew only in the heavenly planets, she said she wanted that. So Krishna, in order to please Satyabhama, he said, okay, fine. And so he took away this Parijata tree. Now, Indra's wife, they started complaining to Indra, and they inspired him to go and fight with the Lord and bring back the Parijata tree. So Indra listened to them like a fool, and he fought with the Supreme Lord, forgetting that the Supreme Lord actually owns everything. Everything in this world belongs to him. But Indra, being henpecked himself, he thought that Krishna was a henpecked husband who is just listening to the wife, his wife's request, because he wants to, show he's so attracted by her beauty. But that is not the case. The Lord is Swarat. He is fully independent and he is not attached to anyone. He is not even attached to any of his queens just because they are beautiful. He only wants to please his devotees for the service that they perform. He wants to reciprocate with that unalloyed devotion of his devotee. And that's why he wanted to reward Satyabhama with the Parijata tree. So after this, we talk about how the Lord killed Narakasura. So this is why the Lord had to go to the heavenly planets and give Mother Aditi her earrings also. This Narakasura, he is the son of Mother Earth from the Lord himself. Okay, but he ended up being an Asura because he was influenced and he was in the association of some demoniac personalities like Bana. Okay, so an atheist is the one who's called a demon. So you may be born in a very good family, you may be born to very good parents, but if you don't have good association, you can also turn into a demon. This is what we learned from the story of Narakasura. So birth is not a criteria for goodness. Unless one is trained in the culture of good association, one cannot be good. So it is very important that we constantly watch whom we are associating with. So this Narakasura, he was troubling the demigods a lot. He stole Lord Varuna's umbrella. He stole the earrings of Mother Aditi. And he also stole the playground of the demigods, which is called Mani Parvata. So after all of this happened, Indra, he was tired of him. And so he went to Dwaraka and he personally requested Lord Krishna to tackle this demon, to handle this demon. And so Lord Krishna, along with Satyabhama Devi, they went on Garuda, they went to the capital of Narakasura, and there they killed this demon. Now, this demon, he had kidnapped so many princesses who were actually the daughters of very great kings, and he imprisoned them in his palace. Now that he was killed, the Lord, he just entered into the palace and he saved all of these princesses. The moment the Lord entered the palace, these princesses, they were so overjoyed and they all offered themselves. They said, please, we would love to be your wife. Why? Because they are all distressed and they are troubled. They have no one else to go to, right? Because they have already been kidnapped by a demon, so nobody else is going to accept them. And the Lord is the only friend of all the distressed. So the Lord, he happily accepted each and every one of these princesses. And how did he get married to them? So the Lord, he expanded into as many forms as there were princesses. And in individual apartments, he accepted each one of these princesses. So the form that the Lord assumed at that time for each princess was not the same. Each form actually matched the princess that he was marrying. So the Lord, if he was marrying a tall princess, he assumed a tall form. If he was marrying a short princess, he assumed a similar form. So that was how the Lord expanded. So in the Brahma Samhita, this is no surprise because we talk about how the Lord has innumerable plenary expansions, right? Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam, right? He has Ananta Rupa, he has unlimited forms. And by that internal potency of the Lord, he can expand himself into so many such personalities, right? So this is known as Swayam Prakasha of the Lord. And again, that Swayam Prakasha form of the Lord can expand into Prabhava and Vaibhava forms. So the Prabhava forms are all, not different from each other. And the Vaibhava, whereas the Vaibhava forms, they are all have a different mood, mostly the mood of servitude towards the Supreme Lord. So Balramji is the form of Lord in his Vaibhav Prakash expansion. And all the Prabhava expansions are the forms of the Lord that he assumed when he was in the Rasa dance with the gopis. So when the Lord expanded there, he took the Prabhav Prakash form. And same way over here also, the Lord assumed that form. Okay, and all of these come because of the internal potency of the Lord. Now, with each one of these, so far he has married 16,108 princesses, and from each of these, he had 10 children, and each one of those children had his exact same qualities. So, after this, it talks about we'll go to the next section, which was the killing of various demons and the Kurukshetra battle. So the Supreme Lord, obviously, the city of Mathura, the city of Dwaraka, they were attacked by various demons. Like we have Kalayavana, Jarasandha, who attacked so many times, right? 17 times he had attacked Lord Krishna and failed. And Salva, all of these people, they tried to attack the Supreme Lord city. But what does the Supreme Lord do? The Lord, he did not kill any one of these people. He decided that they are going to be only killed by my devotees, by the Lord's devotees. And so the Lord, over here, the Lord, he enabled Muchukunda to kill Kalayavana, and he allowed Bhima to be known as the one who killed Jarasandha. So, like that, the Lord, he wants to give fame to all of his devotees. So, the relationship that one has with the Lord is a very happy one. Because the Lord can actually do all of this on his own. The Lord has descended itself so that he can kill all the undesirable forces in this world. But the Lord doesn't want to do it on his own. He wants to share that glory with his devotees. So, because of that, he tries to make sure that his devotees are engaged in killing these demons so that they can take the credit for it. Okay, so he sometimes executes all of his activities through his devotees. That is how the Lord shows his mercy towards his pure unalloyed devotees. Um, well, like what he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, he tells Arjuna in the 11th chapter that you are just a nimitta. तस्मात्त्वमुत्तिष्ठ यशो लभस्व जित्वा शत्रुन् भुङ्क्ष्य राज्यं समृद्धम् मय्येव ते निहता पूर्वमेव निमित्तमात्रं भव सव्यसाचिन्. He says, you get up, prepare to fight and win glory. You conquer all your enemies and you enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement. This is after he shows the universal form, and he shows how Duryodhana, all the kings from the Kaurava side, they are all entering into the Lord. So the Lord shows, I have already killed him, but you be an instrument in my fight, O Sabyasachi, O Arjuna. Now, after this, the Lord also, Sambara, Dvivida, Bana, Mura, Balvala, Dantavakra, so many other demons were killed by Krishna or his devotees or his men. Like Sambara was killed by Pradyumna, Balaram killed Dvivida and Balvala. So there are so many pastimes that describe these again in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in detail. So here Uddhava is just touching on them. And the Lord, he arranged for the killing of all the strong kings who had very great armies, that it actually made the earth tremble. And he brought all of them to the battle of Kurukshetra, where every one of them were killed in the Lord's presence. So, although all of them were killed, and the Lord, he was really not happy that Duryodhana, he also had to be killed by Bhimasen. He was constantly being given advice by, we talked about bad association. Here Duryodhana also had constant bad association. He had the association of Shakuni, Dushasana, and Karna, who gave him ill advice, who did not give him the proper advice that would help influence him in the right way. And so seeing this, the Lord, once Duryodhana was lying there, his Bhima defeats Duryodhana and he beats up his thigh. His thigh was completely broken. So when Duryodhana was lying there, Lord Krishna, he does not seem happy at all. Although the Lord is the one who facilitated it. The Lord is the one who informed Bhima that you have to hit above the thigh, and only then can you defeat Duryodhana. So the Lord, he advised Bhima, but at the same time, he did not want Duryodhana to die so pitifully. But it is the Lord it's the Lord's, it is his duty to award punishment to the wrongdoer. And he is not happy about doing this kind of doing this job, because each and every one of us are the Lord's part and parcel. So there were two reasons why the Lord was not happy to see Duryodhana lying. One was because, of course, we are all his parts and parcels, and Krishna does not want to see any of us suffer. And the second is because Krishna was thinking, oh, all of these 18 Akshawanis are done, but we still have the Yadus who still remain on this earth. The surest path for happiness is to live by the principles that are given by the Lord himself and not being disobedient to his laws. Once, if we start following that, the Lord himself will, he will support us, he will help us, and he will help us attain him, which is our ultimate goal. So now the Lord had to make sure that he gets rid of this burden of yadus. So we will recite this verse. This is the this is the 14th verse from this chapter. Kiyan bhuvoyam shapitoru yadrona bhishmarjuna bhima mule ashtadasha kaushi shino madam sher ashte balam durvishaham yadunam. After the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, the abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshauhinis, has now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Bhima. But what is this? There is still the great strength of the Yadu dynasty, born of myself, which may be a more unbearable burden. Now, the purport of this verse was very, very beautiful. So, I'd like to read that purport. Portions of that purport. It's a long purport. So Srila Prabhupada says that it is a wrong theory that due to an increase in population, the world becomes overburdened, and therefore there are wars and other annihilation processes. The earth is never overburdened. The heaviest of mountains and oceans on the face of the earth, they hold more living entities than there are human beings, and they are not overburdened. And he says that there is also an adequate arrangement of food for all the living beings all over the earth, just by the order of the Supreme Lord. And the Lord can arrange more and more if there is a disproportionate increase in living beings. Okay, so there is no question of an increase in population causing a burden. The earth is becoming overburdened not due to overpopulation, but due to dharma glani, which is the irregular discharge of the Lord's desires. The Lord, he appears on earth to curb the increase in miscreants and not the increase in population. He was talking about how the 18 Akshavinis have been defeated and have been killed. But that's not because it was such a huge number that the Lord decided to reduce the number of people. No, those were all mischief makers. They were all people who were not living according to the rules laid down, according to the laws laid down by the Lord himself. So this material creation, it is meant for fulfilling the desires of the Lord. And his desire is that the conditioned soul who is unfit to enter into the kingdom of the God has a chance to improve their condition for entering. So this entire process of cosmic arrangement is only intended to give a chance for these conditioned souls to enter into the kingdom of God. And there is adequate arrangement for their maintenance by the nature of the Lord. So over here, he talks about the burden of the yadus, the burden on earth by the yadus. So Srila Prabhupada, he explains that there are two kinds of burden. There's the burden of beast and the burden of love. He said that the burden of beast is unbearable, but the burden of love is a source of pleasure. So when Krishna refers to the burden of the Yadu dynasty on the earth, he's referring to something different than the burden of the beast. Because there are such a huge number of family members that were born in Lord Krishna's family. Okay, so they were millions in number, and they were certainly it caused a great increase in the population of the earth. But because they were all expansions of the Lord himself, by his various plenary expansions, they were all source of very great pleasure to the earth. Now, that's why it's a burden of love. See, all the members of the family of Krishna, they were incarnations of various demigods, and they were to disappear from the surface of the earth along with the Lord. So when he was referring to the unbearable heaviness on earth in connection with the Yadu dynasty, he was referring to the burden of separation. So Jiva Goswami has also confirmed this inference, and that is what is mentioned in the purport. So, but the Lord was thinking that the Yadus, they cannot be destroyed just like how the others were killed in battle. They were killed, by various means, either by the Lord or his other associates or his devotees. Yeah. So these Yadus, they are the plenary expansions of the Lord. So it is not that easy to kill them. So the Lord had to plan, he had to prepare for the disappearance of the Yadus. And he decided that they are going to disappear only when I disappear or when I want them to disappear. And he decided that they are going to disappear by quarreling amongst themselves once they are intoxicated. And so the Lord and his associates, they appear and disappear by the will of the Lord himself. So they don't have any laws of material nature that would, that they need to follow. They're not subject to any of that. Nobody is going to die in the family, like nobody is able to kill the family of the Lord. And none of these personalities can be, have a natural death either by the laws of nature, like by old age. That is not possible because the Lord is also always Nava Yauvanam. He's he always is young, right? Very youthful all the time. His expansions were also like that. So the only means for their disappearance is to have this show of a fight amongst themselves, as though they were all intoxicated and they are drinking, and that's how they fought amongst themselves. So this fight also would have to take place only by the will of the Lord. So the devotees, they are very completely surrendered to the Lord. So they are just instruments in the hands of the Lord. So they can be used in whichever way the Lord desires. And so these pure devotees, they also enjoy the pastimes because they want to see the Lord happy at all times. They don't mind. However we are being used, you can use us because we just want to see you happy. You have a plan, we will follow it. And they don't have any independence of their own. They don't use that individuality in such situations. They only want to make sure that they utilize their individuality to pursue the desires of the Lord. And that cooperation makes a perfect scene in the Lord's pastimes. After this, Krishna, now he was talking about the burden of Yadus. So what does he do to prepare for it? So the Lord, he established, of course, after Kurukshetra battle, he established Maharaj Yudhishthira as the emperor of the earth. Okay, because Yudhishthir Maharaj was to show how you can be an ideal administrator, rule with great piety. And it's a very, very sweet relation that the Lord has with his devotees, because a Lord is sitting in Dwaraka as Dwarakanath, and he is the ruler of Dwaraka, which is now under Maharaj Yudhishthir's empire, because Maharaj Yudhishthir is now the ruler of the entire world. Now, after this, of course, we know the incident of the embryo, the baby Parikshit Maharaj. So Krishna, he protected this embryo of Uttara when the Brahmastra was released by Ashwatthama just to kill this baby. So very importantly, the verse itself, it says, I'll read the translation. It says that the embryo of the Puru's dynasty, of Puru's descendant, begotten by the great hero Abhimanyu in the womb of Mother Uttara, his wife, was burned by the weapon of the son of Drona. But later he was again protected by the Lord. So here it says that the embryo of the Puru descendant was burnt already. Okay, so Prabhupada he explained in the purport that the embryonic body of Parikshit, which was in formation after Uttara's pregnancy by Abhimanyu, was burnt by the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. But the Lord gave him a second body within the womb, and thus this Parikshit Maharaj was saved. And this is a direct proof that the body and living entity or the spiritual spark, the soul, are different. Because although the body was uh, destroyed, the soul remained, and the Lord was able to give that soul a separate body and different body while when the Lord entered into the womb of Mother Uttara. So this particular living entity, who was actually to be a descendant of the next heir to the throne of the Pandavas, he was not an ordinary living entity, and he was uh, he was a very special personality, and that's why the Supreme Lord, by his will, he made sure that he is going to be alive, he is going to be well, so that he can succeed Maharaj Yudhishthira on the throne. So after this, Maharaj Yudhishthira, he was assisted by his younger brothers, and he ruled the earth by following Lord Krishna's advice. And so Lord Krishna also advised Maharaj Yudhishthira to perform 3 Ashwamedha sacrifices. And so Maharaj Yudhishthira, he follows that advice also of the Supreme Lord. So he is known as the ideal monarchical representative on earth. Why? Because he was constantly following the advice of Supreme Lord Krishna. As it said in the Ishopanishad, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagatena tyatvena bhunjita ma grita kasya svidhanam. Everything, animate or inanimate, within this universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. So it is our responsibility that we accept whatever is necessary for us, and we set aside that as our quota. We should not accept anything else, anything more, knowing very well whom it actually belongs to. Yudhishthir Maharaj, he followed this principle to the T. He knew that the Supreme Lord owns everything. He is the proprietor of this entire cosmic manifestation. And so it is his duty to just follow whatever order the Lord gives him. So this whole system of this material world, it is arranged with a program, with a plan. And what is that plan of the Lord? It is that he wants to present each and every conditioned soul, each and every living entity, the chance to revive our relationship with the Lord and somehow make it back to Godhead, back home. So Maharaj Yudhishthir was someone who was very successful in that. So 2 of the Lord's opulences that he demonstrated greatly in Dwaraka was his detachment, vairagya, and knowledge. When we talk about knowledge, means to know that the mission of the human life is to end all the miseries of material existence. And that in spite of having to fulfill our bodily necessities, we must be detached from an animalistic way of life. So when we are fulfilling the demands of the body, then we are following an animalistic life. But when we fulfill the mission of the soul, then we are following the human mission, which is what the Lord wants us to actually do. So now Uddhava also talks about how the Lord was in Dwaraka. So the Lord, by his beautiful, affectionate smile and his glances, his nectarian words and his flawless character, and his transcendental body, which is the residence of Lakshmi Devi, she resides in his heart, right? The Lord, he enjoyed various pastimes in the association of the Yadus. During the daytime, he was with all the Yadus, and at night, he enjoyed nice pastimes with his queen. queens in Dwaraka. So he was engaged like this in household life for many, many years. And after that, the Lord himself, he showed how we have to actually live by exhibiting his detachment. Mm. So here in verse 3:23, the we will recite the verse. Devadineshu kameshu devadina swayam puman ko visrambheta yogena yogeshwaram anubrata. Every living entity is controlled by a supernatural force, and thus his sense enjoyment is also under the control of that supernatural force. No one, therefore, can put his faith in Lord Krishna's transcendental sense activities, but one who has become a devotee of the Lord by rendering devotional service. So we know janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tyatvatah tyaktva devam punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. So no one can understand the transcendental birth and activities of the Lord, but once we understand it, then we go straight back to the Lord, right? The same fact is explained here. No one but one who is enlightened by devotional service of the Lord can understand the difference between the Lord's activities and those of others. We would think, oh, the Lord is also engaged in mundane activities just like us. But all of his activities are transcendental because the Lord himself is transcendental. Mhm. So, in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, and Lord Krishna says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yas chasmi tatvataha tato mam tatyatvato nyatva vishate tad anantaram. So one can understand me as I am, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So we cannot even know a fraction of the activities of the Lord if we are not a pure devotee of the Lord. So here now, we are Uddhava explains the most strangest of pastimes that happens, right? The Lord, he planned the Kurukshetra battle, so many demons were killed, but now he has to also plan for his disappearance. And along with him, he has to take all of the yadus that were remaining. And once when the princes of the Yadu and Boja dynasties, they used to do a lot of fun activities, a lot of mockery. But one time they just exceeded their limits and they made the great sages angry with their mockery. And so finally the sages cursed them. These associates of the Lord. So we need to understand how do we see this pastime. So the associates of the Lord, they are all either the expansions of the Lord's associate, very exalted devotees. So are they actually capable of doing something like this? And are the sages also capable of cursing them like this? So it is not possible for these great personalities to offend any saintly man, to offend any sage. And neither could the sages actually be influenced to anger or any, because there was Narada Muni in that assembly, right? So the sages could not be willing to actually curse them unless they are doing this as a leela, as a pastime for the Lord's pleasure, right? This is all another pastime only. So the princes, they were cursed so that they knew, okay, it is time, we are not going to be vanquished, and so that the people also understand that anyone can be vanquished. by even great devotees of the Lord can be vanquished. It need not be by material forces or material nature. But it could be when by the reaction of anger. So we have to make sure that we do not commit offenses to the lotus feet of any devotee of the Lord. They are all exalted Vaishnavas who are there. So the Lord is trying to show us that if we commit an offense to the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, we are going to face the repercussions for it. So even if they are members of the Supreme Lord's own family, they also have to face the consequences. And that's what the Lord wanted to show. So after a few months passed, and all the descendants of the Rishni, Boja, and Andaka dynasty, they were incarnations of demigods. They all decided to go to Prabhasa. Okay, whereas those who were eternal devotees of the Lord, they did not leave. They remained in Dwarka. So few of them, they went to Prabhasa, and there these yadus, because it's a Tirtha Kshetra, they took bath, they offered their oblations to their forefathers, they prayed to the demigods, they offered respects to the sages, and they gave lot of charity over there. They gave cows, they gave gold, they gave beddings, animal skins, blankets, horses, elephants, brides, everything in charity, okay, to the Brahmana. So Srila Prabhupada, he says in the purport that as a rule, every human being is indebted to God, the demigods, great sages, other living entities, people in general, and forefathers for the various contributions that we have received from them. So everyone is obligated to repay the debt of gratitude. The Yadus who went to Prabhasa and performed their duties, they did this by distributing land, gold, and well nourished cows in charity. So they also offered very delicious prasadam to the Brahmanas, and they touched their heads to the ground and offered obeisances to them. Okay. So these, they are showing us how to live perfectly by protecting the cows and the Brahmanas. Okay, so this behavior that is exhibited by the descendants of Yadus in the Prabhasa Kshetra, it was a very high culture, and it was exactly to the point of perfection. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the perfection of human life can be attained by following three principles of civilization. One is by protecting the cows, by maintaining a Brahmanical culture, and above all, by becoming a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. So, without becoming a devotee of the Lord, we cannot perfect our human life. And the perfection of life is to be elevated to the spiritual world. That's like what all of our Guru Maharajas, they tell us. That this is a very rare opportunity that we get, where we are under the special mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu. So we need to take this opportunity, and we need to make sure that we try to go back to Godhead in this one lifetime itself. So that is the perfection, is to be elevated to the spiritual world, where there is absolutely no birth, death, disease, no old age, nothing is there. And this is the highest perfectional aim of life. Without this aim, any amount of material advancement or comforts can only bring defeat to this human form of life. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, so this is the very last purport of the very last verse in this chapter. So there, Srila Prabhupada, he also explains the difference, or who are the Brahmanas and who are the Vaishnavas. So he says that the intelligent class of men are called Brahmanas, and those who have realized the absolute truth in his supreme personal feature is called a Vaishnava. But ultimately, both of them will accept food that is only a remnant of sacrifice. Of course, all sacrifice is meant to satisfy the Yajna Purusha, Vishnu, right? And all of these yadus, they prepared food, and that was first offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then only did they give and feed all the Brahmanas. So the Yadus or any enlightened family in the Vedic culture, they are all trained so that they can attain human perfection just by the total cooperation between the various social orders. So they are Kshatriyas. They wanted to make sure that they are protecting the cows, they are protecting the Brahmanas, and they are being cooperative with all the other people. So in Bhagavad Gita, of course, we say that one who accepts foodstuff that is a remnant of sacrifice is freed from all sinful reactions, right? Yajna shishta shinasanto muchyate sarvato bhayat muchyate sarvakil bishay bunjate te tvagam papa ye pachantyatma karanad. So devotee of the Lord is released from all kinds of sins because they eat only food that is offered as sacrifice first. And whereas the others who prepare food for their own personal sense enjoyment, they eat only sin. So Srila Prabhupada, he ends the chapter by saying that devotional service is the only criteria for a bona fide offering to the Lord. The Lord assures that he positively eats such food stuff that is offered by the devotees. How that is so reassuring to us, because every day we would offer something to the Supreme Lord, right? At home also. And he is telling us that I am eating whatever you're offering. Um, so, judging from all sides, Srila Prabhupada ends by saying that the Yadus were perfectly trained, civilized persons, and being cursed by the Brahmana sages is the desire of the Lord. So, this whole incident, it was just a warning to everyone that you should not behave lightly with a Brahmana or a Vaishnava. You need to be very careful when you are dealing with them. So, in order to summarize, we looked at Krishna's various pastimes of the Supreme Lord outside Vrindavan. So the pastimes of the Lord in Mathura and the pastimes of the Lord in Dwaraka. We talked about Krishna's education, his marriage. Basically, not we, it's actually Uddhava who was relishing all these pastimes of Lord Krishna. He started talking about how the
We cannot see the summarization screen. It's totally white screen. Yeah, now it's okay. Perfect. Sorry to interrupt.
Now can you see, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, now I can
Okay,
see.
thank you. Sorry, Mataji. Okay, so Uddhava, he was relishing the various pastimes of the Supreme Lord, pastimes of Lord Krishna. Now he was talking about the pastimes in Mathura and Dwaraka. He talked about how Krishna very dramatically they killed Kamsa, how he went to Gurukul in Sandipani Muni's ashram, how he kidnapped the Princess Rukmini, he stole the Parijata tree and he confronted Indra, he killed Narakasura, and he got married to all those princesses that were kidnapped by Narakasura. And how finally there was this huge massacre at Kurukshetra. And after all this was done, the Lord, he established Maharaj Yudhishthira as the king of this entire world. And Krishna, he nicely resided in Dwaraka with all of his queens, with the Yadus. Now, once the children of the Yadu dynasty, they took their mockery a little too far. They went to the sages and they did something inappropriate there, and that invoked the anger of the sages, and the sages cursed that they were going to be destroyed. So after a few months in Prabhasa Kshetra, all of the family members, they accepted the remnants of sacrifice. Now, and after being intoxicated, they lost clarity in mind and consciousness. They started speaking harshly to each other, and ultimately they destroyed each other. So that is this chapter of the third chapter of the third canto of this Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you. If you have any reflections or realizations, please go ahead and share.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Very, very beautiful summary. And very exhaustively covered this entire section. And it was very interesting because it's all Krishna's pastimes in a nutshell. So thank you so much for that. I have a few questions.
Mataji, you can ask Mataji. I think you will only have the answers.
Mataji, I don't remember or I don't know, so that's why I'm asking. Mataji, when Sandipani Muni's son was taken away to the abode of Yamaraj, it says, right? So, meaning since he's Sandipani Muni's son, I don't know if this question must have been answered somewhere, but I didn't take the effort to go and read, so I'm asking that question. Since he's Sandipani Muni's son, so why did he have to specifically go to Yamaloka? Wouldn't he be?
So the answer that I have also heard was that it probably could have been the effect of his some past karma, and that's why because he's a small child, right? That's why that child had to be, had to die early. So that was what I heard, Mataji, but definitely can go back to the 10th canto and read it.
Yeah, sure, Mataji. Yeah, thank you. Again, the queens getting married to the various forms of. So, I mean, how do we really understand that, Krishna was, you said like depending on the girl, it was like whether tall or short, and that part I didn't quite follow. I just thought that it's always that, yeah, I mean, irrespective of whatever wife Krishna's Krishna, right? Like, his none of his opulences should change. I mean, I don't know. I'm asking you.
So the translation over here directly says that, it explains that. So I'm just going to that verse. Yeah. So in text 8, in the translation, maybe I'll share the screen. Or here directly it says, all those princesses were lodged in different apartments, and the Lord simultaneously assumed different bodily expansions, exactly matching each and every princess. He accepted their hands in perfect ritual by his internal potency. So here Srila Prabhupada, he says that by his internal potency, the Lord can expand into various personalities. All of them are non-different from one another. And the forms into which the Lord expanded to marry the princesses in different apartments were all slightly different, just to match each and every one of them. They are called Vaibhav Vilasa forms of the Lord and are affected by his internal potency, Yogamaya. So,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but
sorry, Mataji?
I said it's very difficult to comprehend, but still I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
How the Lord could take on different forms. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah.
But if anyone has Kirtida Sundari Mataji is there, Divya Gaurangi Mataji is there, so many of you are there who are definitely who you all would know. So Vanita Gandharvika Mataji is there. So if you have an answer, please go ahead, Mataji. Kirtida Mataji, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Mataji, for the beautiful summary, and very beautifully you presented each and every part of this chapter. And as we have already pointed out that Krishna can take as many forms. So that is achintya, right? With our material conditioning, we cannot understand the spiritual identity. So whatever Krishna does is achintya. And that solves all the purpose. This one word has the solution to all the things related to Krishna. Everything is achintya. We cannot conceive. It's inconceivable. Thank you, Mataji. Beautiful session and beautiful presentation. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Mataji.
Mataji, I have a question. The army of Lord, the Narayani Seva, they were serving Lord Krishna prior to the battle. Post that, Arjuna, we know that, right? Arjuna asked for Krishna and Duryodhana asked for the Narayani Seva. So if they are serving Lord Krishna, the Narayani Seva, and later they have to be at the side of Adharma, how we should take this? They are Krishna devotees only, right? They are serving Krishna, they are on Krishna's side, and now they have to fight from the Adharma side.
So I will try to answer that, Mataji, from the purports that Srila Prabhupada himself repeatedly mentions in this chapter. One main highlight is that the pure devotees of the Lord, they have completely left it to the Lord's discretion to choose what activities they are going to perform. And so the Lord decides, okay, you are going to fight on the side of the Kauravas, and they are willing to accept that, and they are willing to fight on that side, irrespective of what the situation is, just so that they can please the Supreme Lord. So that was Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, it makes sense. They are just executing the orders of the Lord.
Of the Lord, yes. So no matter what the Lord says, just like Bhishma Dev, right? Bhishma Dev would have easily said that, oh, I love the Pandavas and I want to fight on their side. But instead, he stood with the Kauravas and he fought, even though he knows that what they are doing is inappropriate. So just because the Lord wanted to relish that Virya Rasa with.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. Beautiful presentation. And as usual, you deliver very beautifully. And Palvit wants to say Hare Krishna to you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Palvit. I was thinking when I heard the baby's noise that it might be you, Mataji.
Yeah, and I was happy today was not the model class.
Oh.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you. If you have any realizations, thank you so much, Vrinda Gopika Mataji. I really hope you feel better. Thank you, all devotees.
Hare Krishna ji, indulekha karuna by Mataji. कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम श्री द्वारका धाम की जय श्री द्वारकाधीश की जय very inspiring class as usual Mataji कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Indulekha Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for such a beautiful class. Very nice summary. At the end, the summary really helps us, Mataji. Beautiful slides, Mataji. Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Vinita Mataji, for being there all the time, irrespective of where you are, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Lakshmi Mataji. Did you have a question?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Wonderful session. I was hearing on YouTube and I had a question, so I jumped onto the Zoom at the last minute. I'm sorry. I have a small question, Mataji. You mentioned about Parishit Maharaj, right?
Yes.
That God saved him and already his body was burnt and then he gave it. So is there any particular shloka for that reference, Mataji, if you could share across?
Yes, Mataji. So I'll just share my screen again, one sec. So it is from this chapter itself. It's from the third chapter of this third canto. Yeah, so here, text 17, the embryo of Puru's descendant begotten by the great hero Abhimanyu in the womb of Uttara, his wife, was burnt by the weapon of the son of Drona. But later he was again protected by the Lord. So this is the text directly.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you so much.
And
I
the
will refer it.
purport also explain. So what I said was from the purport directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mataji. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear devotees, for being here and for joining us. If there are no other reflections, we can end the call here. Mataji, shall I end? Vancha kalpata rubhyascha kripa sindhu
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो
देव्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय शील प्रभुपाद की जय ग्रंथार भागवत assemble devotees की जय
Jai.
इंदुलेखा करुणा माता जी की जय
अनंत कोटि भक्त वृंद की जय गुरु महाराज
Thank
की
you all devotees for joining today's session. We'll
Thank
meet
you,
next
Beta.
week.
Hare Krishna.
Don't forget
Dandavat.
to join us. Hari Bol, closing the call.